Dr. Zexthel stared at the datapad in his four-armed grip and shook his massive head in disgust. Another report about the so-called humans had arrived from the Outer Rim Scouts, and like all the others, it made no sense at all. The lead scientist of the Galactic Science Consortium had seen thousands of species over his long career, but nothing as ridiculous as these supposed creatures from some backwater planet called Earth. The reports described beings that walked on only two legs, which was already suspicious since most intelligent life needed at least four limbs for proper balance. These humans supposedly had thin skin that could be easily cut, yet they claimed to survive in environments that would kill most known species. They had weak bones that broke under pressure, but somehow managed to heal faster than anything in the medical databases. Zexthel walked across the pristine white floor of his laboratory toward the main viewing screen where his assistant Velmar was reviewing the latest batch of scout reports. The young researcher's tentacles were wrapped tightly around his workstation, which meant he was either very excited or very confused. Given the subject matter, Zexthel suspected it was confusion. "Tell me what new impossibilities our scouts have discovered today," Zexthel said as he settled his bulk into the specially designed chair that could support his massive frame. His species had evolved on a high-gravity world where being large and strong was necessary for survival. The idea of a species succeeding while being small and fragile seemed like a joke. Velmar's eye stalks turned toward his superior, and his tentacles released their grip on the console. "Sir, the reports claim these humans have something called adrenaline that can make them stronger when they are afraid or angry. The chemical supposedly increases their strength by several times their normal capacity and makes them ignore pain. An injury preposterous," Zexthel rumbled. "No species develops a chemical that makes them stronger under stress. Evolution rewards calm thinking and careful planning, not wild emotional responses. These scouts are either lying or they have encountered some kind of artificial life forms." The door to the laboratory slid open with a soft hiss, and Research Director Quintal entered the room. Her species was known for their logical minds and precise thinking, which made her the perfect choice to lead the biological research division. She carried herself with the grace of someone who had spent centuries studying the mysteries of life across the galaxy. "I have been reviewing all the human reports from the past year," Quintal announced as she moved to join them at the viewing screen. "The data is so contradictory that I am beginning to suspect we are dealing with either a massive hoax or some kind of experimental weapon designed to confuse our intelligence networks." Zexthel nodded in agreement. "What rational species would develop the ability to ignore pain when pain is the body's warning system to prevent damage? And this supposed adrenaline chemical would be more likely to cause heart failure than provide any benefit during dangerous situations." Velmer pulled up a holographic display showing the reported human anatomy. The three-dimensional image rotated slowly as he highlighted different systems that made no biological sense. "According to these scans, humans have redundant organs that serve no apparent purpose. They have an appendix that does nothing and wisdom teeth that do not fit in their mouths. Their spines are curved in a way that should cause constant pain, and their brains use only a small fraction of their total capacity. You see," Quintal said, pointing at the display with one of her delicate fingers. "No species survives to intelligence with such obvious design flaws. Either these reports are completely fabricated or we are looking at artificial constructs designed to appear biological." The three scientists studied the hologram in silence for several minutes. Everything about the reported human physiology violated the basic principles of evolutionary biology. Species developed efficient systems that served clear purposes. They did not waste energy on redundant organs or maintain painful structural defects across millions of years of development. Zexthel was about to dismiss the reports entirely when an urgent communication signal interrupted their discussion. The main screen flickered and was replaced by the image of Captain Nexville from the Outer Rim monitoring station. The captain's usually calm expression showed signs of stress, and his scales had shifted to the darker colors that indicated high anxiety. "Director Zexthel, we have a situation that requires immediate attention." The the captain announced without the usual formal greetings. "A vessel from the human species has arrived at our station and is requesting permission to dock. They claim to be peaceful explorers seeking contact with other intelligent species." The laboratory fell completely silent. Quintel's logical mind was clearly working through the implications while Velmar's tentacles had wrapped themselves around his console again. Zexthel felt his own hearts beating faster as he processed this unexpected development. "Are you certain they are the species from the reports?" Zexthel asked. "Have you verified their biological signatures match the scout data?" "The initial scans confirm they match the reported physiology," Captain Nexville replied. "But sir, the readings are so unusual that our computers keep flagging them as sensor errors. These beings should not be able to function with their apparent biological limitations, yet they have somehow achieved faster than light travel." Quintel stepped forward to address the captain directly. "Maintain safe distance and do not allow them to board under any circumstances. If these are indeed the reported humans, then we are dealing with either an elaborate deception or something that challenges our understanding of biological possibility. Sir, they are asking to send a small diplomatic team aboard our station," the captain continued. "Their leader identifies herself as Ambassador Lisa Carter and claims to represent something called the United Earth Government. They appear to be genuine in their desire for peaceful contact." Zexthel considered the situation carefully. The Galactic Science Consortium had protocols for first contact with new species, but those protocols assumed the species would follow known biological rules. If these humans were real, then they represented something completely outside established scientific understanding. If they were fake, then someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to create convincing artificial beings. "Grant them permission to dock," Zexthel decided, "but maintain full security protocols and have medical teams standing by. We will examine these supposed humans ourselves and determine once and for all whether they are real or some elaborate construct. If they truly exist, then we need to understand how such impossible biology could have developed." Velmor began preparing the advanced scanning equipment while Quintel reviewed the contact protocols for potentially dangerous species. Zexthel stared at the screen and wondered if he was about to witness the discovery of the century or the most sophisticated hoax in galactic history. Either way, the next few hours would provide answers to questions that had puzzled the scientific community for years. The impossible humans were coming. Ambassador Lisa Carter walked through the airlock connecting her ship to the alien research station and tried to maintain her diplomatic composure despite the obvious tension in the air. The past 3 hours of negotiations had been unlike anything in her extensive diplomatic career. Instead of discussing trade agreements or cultural exchanges, the alien scientists seemed more interested in proving that she and her crew did not actually exist. The receiving chamber was enormous with ceilings that stretched far above her head and walls made of some kind of translucent material that seemed to glow with its own inner light. 3 alien beings waited to greet the human delegation, and each one was more impressive than anything Lisa had seen in the briefing materials. Back on Earth, Dr. Zexthel was easily twice her height and built like a living mountain with 4 powerful arms and skin that looked like it could deflect small arms fire. Research Director Quintel was more graceful, but no less imposing, with features that suggested both intelligence and barely controlled skepticism. The younger assistant Velmer seemed nervous and kept adjusting his position with movements that reminded Lisa of an octopus. "Welcome to Research Station Alpha 7, Dr. Zexthel said in heavily accented but understandable English. "We appreciate your willingness to submit to our standard biological verification procedures." Lisa exchanged glances with her science officer, Ryan Davis, who had spent the entire journey preparing for this moment. The aliens had made it clear that they considered humanity to be either a hoax or some kind of artificial construct, and the only way to proceed with diplomatic contact was to prove their biological authenticity through comprehensive scanning. "We understand your concerns," Lisa replied carefully. "My crew is prepared to cooperate with your scientific protocols as long as they do not pose any health risks to our people." Chief Medical Officer Amy Thompson stepped forward with her portable medical scanner already in hand. We would also like to monitor the process to ensure compatibility between our biology and your scanning technology, she added. Some of our previous encounters with alien technology have resulted in unexpected reactions. Dr. Quentel's expression shifted to something that might have been amusement. Your previous encounters, she repeated. You speak as though your species has met other intelligent life before today. Ryan Davis nodded. We have had contact with several species over the past few years. Most have been friendly, though some required more extensive negotiations than others. The alien scientists exchanged what were clearly significant looks. Velmor's tentacles curled and uncurled in a pattern that suggested extreme agitation, while Zexthal's forearms folded across his massive chest in a gesture that needed no translation. Impossible, Quintel said flatly. Our intelligence networks monitor all spacefaring activity in this region. There are no other species currently engaging in first contact protocols with unknown civilizations. Lisa realized she had made a diplomatic error by mentioning humanity's other contacts. The aliens seemed to believe they were the most advanced civilization in the local area, and learning that humans had already met others clearly disturbed them. She decided to focus on the immediate situation rather than explain the complex political landscape that Earth was already navigating. Perhaps we should proceed with your scanning procedures, she suggested. Once you have verified our biological nature, we can discuss the broader implications of human space exploration. Dr. Zexthal led them deeper into the station toward what he called the Advanced Medical Analysis Center. The corridors were wide enough to accommodate his bulk, but the human delegation had to walk quickly to keep pace with his long strides. Along the way, they passed other alien researchers who stopped their work to stare at the humans with expressions of obvious curiosity. The medical center contained equipment that looked more advanced than anything in Earth's most sophisticated hospitals. Massive scanning devices hung from articulated arms, while holographic displays showed three-dimensional models of various alien anatomies. Lisa noticed that all the displayed creatures were significantly larger and more robust than humans, which explained some of the alien skepticism about human biology. We will begin with Chief Medical Officer Thompson, Dr. Zexthal announced as he activated the scanning systems. Her medical knowledge should allow her to assist with the interpretation of results. Amy approached the scanning platform with professional confidence despite the obvious alien design of the equipment. She had volunteered to go first specifically because her medical training made her the most qualified to monitor the process and identify any potential problems before they affected the rest of the crew. Please remain as still as possible, Velmer instructed as he operated the control console. The scanners will examine every aspect of your biological structure down to the molecular level. The scanning began with a soft humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Lisa watched as holographic displays around the room began showing detailed images of Amy's internal structure in real time. The alien scientists gathered around the displays with expressions of intense concentration that gradually shifted to confusion and then to something approaching shock. This cannot be correct, Quintel muttered as she studied the readouts. The muscular density readings are contradictory. The tissue shows signs of enormous potential strength, but the baseline measurements indicate relatively weak actual performance, Doctor. Zexthal manipulated the holographic display to examine Amy's skeletal structure. The bone density is completely inconsistent, he announced. These bones appear fragile enough to break under moderate stress, yet they show signs of having survived significant trauma and healed stronger than before. Velmer was frantically adjusting his instruments and running diagnostic checks on the scanning equipment. Sir, I am getting readings that suggest this being has two distinct circulatory systems operating simultaneously. The primary system appears normal, but there is a secondary network that seems designed to deliver emergency chemicals throughout the body. Amy remained still on the scanning platform, but Lisa could see the tension in her posture. The medical officer was clearly concerned about what the aliens were discovering and what it might mean for the diplomatic mission. Ryan Davis had moved closer to the displays and was studying the readouts with the trained eye of someone who understood both human biology and advanced technology. The neurological scans are even more puzzling, Dr. Quintal continued. The brain shows massive unused capacity, but the active regions display connection patterns that should be impossible with this level of development. It is as though this brain was designed to handle far more complex processing than it currently performs. The scanning process continued for nearly an hour as the alien scientists examined every aspect of Amy's biology. With each new discovery, their confusion seemed to deepen rather than resolve. They found redundant organs that served no apparent purpose, chemical production systems that seemed designed for extreme stress responses, and cellular structures that suggested an immune system capable of adapting to completely unknown threats. "Run the scans again," Dr. Zexthel ordered when the process was complete. "There must be errors in the data collection." The second scan produced identical results. Amy Thompson was definitely a biological organism, but her physiology violated every known principle of evolutionary development. She was simultaneously too fragile to survive and too adaptable to be contained by any environment. Her body seemed designed for a level of stress and challenge that should have driven her species extinct millions of years ago. "We need to scan more of your crew," Quintal announced with barely controlled excitement. "If these results are consistent across your species, then we are dealing with something that will require a complete revision of biological science." Lisa looked at Amy, who nodded slightly to indicate she had suffered no ill effects from the procedure. "Very well," Lisa agreed. "But I want our medical officer to monitor all subsequent scans to ensure our people remain safe," as Ryan Davis took his position on the scanning platform. Lisa wondered what other impossible discoveries awaited them. The aliens had expected to prove that humans were fake, but instead they seemed to be discovering that humanity was far stranger than anyone had imagined. The conversation about scan results was interrupted by a loud alarm that echoed through the research station corridors with increasing urgency. Emergency lights began flashing red and blue while automated. Announcements filled the air in the alien language that sounded like a mixture of musical tones and mechanical clicks. Dr. Zexthel's massive frame tensed as he listened to the announcements, and his forearms began moving in rapid gestures that clearly indicated serious concern. Research Director Quintal was already moving toward a communication panel while Velmor abandoned his scanner controls to access what appeared to be an emergent system. "What is the nature of the emergency?" Ambassador Carter asked as she moved closer to the alien scientists. Her diplomatic training had prepared her to remain calm during crisis situations, but the obvious alarm of their host suggested this was something beyond normal station operations. "Primary reactor containment failure," Dr. Zexthel replied without taking his attention away from the status displays. "The power core is experiencing a cascade overload that could result in complete station destruction if not contained within the next 30 minutes, Chief Medical Officer." Thompson immediately began gathering her medical equipment while Science Officer Davis moved to examine the alien technical displays. Even without understanding the language, both humans could see that multiple systems were showing critical failure warnings and the situation was deteriorating rapidly. "Automated systems are attempting emergency shutdown procedures," Quintal reported from her communication station. However, the manual override controls are located in the reactor chamber, which is now flooded with lethal radiation levels. Engineer Pete Collins, who had been quietly observing the scanning procedures, suddenly stepped forward with the confident manner of someone who had spent his career solving impossible technical problems under extreme pressure. "What type of radiation and what are the current exposure levels in the reactor chamber?" he asked. Velmer consulted his instruments and his tentacles curled in what the humans were beginning to recognize as a sign of distress. "Gamma radiation at approximately 4,000 units per minute. Fatal exposure for our species occurs at 50 units per minute, and the levels are continuing to increase. The station evacuation protocol has been initiated," Dr. Zexthel announced as he moved toward the exit. "All personnel must reach the emergency pods within 15 minutes to ensure safe distance from potential reactor explosion." Collins grabbed Dr. Zexthel's arm with a grip that surprised the much larger alien scientist. Wait, he said with the kind of calm authority that came from years of making life or death decisions in engineering emergencies. Those manual override controls you mentioned, can they be operated by someone without your species-specific biological requirements? Theoretically, yes, but the radiation exposure would kill any known biological life form within 3 minutes, Quintal replied. The controls are simple mechanical switches, but reaching them requires approximately 10 minutes of work in the contaminated environment. Security Chief Tyler Brooks moved to stand beside Collins with the easy coordination of crew members who had worked together through countless dangerous situations. Pete, what are you thinking? He asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. I am thinking that someone needs to shut down that reactor manually, and we might be the only ones who can survive long enough to do it, Collins replied. Amy, what do you think about human radiation tolerance compared to these species? Medical Officer Thompson was already running calculations on her portable scanner. Based on the biological data we have seen, our cellular repair mechanisms are significantly more advanced than theirs, she said. We might be able to tolerate exposure levels that would be fatal to them, though it would still be extremely dangerous. Pilot Danny Rodriguez joined the group with the kind of determined expression that had made him famous for flying impossible missions during the Outer Colony Wars. If Pete is going into that reactor chamber, then he is not going alone, he announced. This is exactly the kind of situation where humans work better as a team. Ambassador Carter found herself in the difficult position of balancing diplomatic responsibilities with crew safety. As a representative of Earth's government, she could not authorize a suicide mission, but as a human being, she understood that sometimes impossible situations required impossible solutions. Dr. Zexthal, what happens to this station and everyone on it if the reactor is not shut down manually? She asked. Complete destruction within 30 minutes, the alien scientist replied. The explosion will be visible from 3 star systems, and the radiation release will contaminate this entire region of space. For decades, Collins was already moving toward the corridor that led to the reactor chamber. That settles it then, he said. Tyler and Danny, you are with me. Amy, I want you monitoring our biological status from as close as you can safely get. Lisa, keep these folks calm and make sure they understand that we are doing this by choice. The 3 humans began jogging through the station corridors, following the emergency direction markers toward the reactor chamber. Behind them, they could hear Dr. Zexthal trying to convince the station's evacuation coordinator to delay the emergency pod launch, while Quintal frantically adjusted her monitoring equipment to track human biological responses. As they approached the reactor chamber, the radiation detectors on their suits began registering levels that would have been fatal to most species. Collins checked his readings and noted that his heart rate was increasing while his muscle tension was building in the familiar pattern of adrenaline response. Guys, I am starting to feel that rush, he announced over the communication system. My hands are getting steadier and everything is looking sharper. Brooks nodded inside his radiation suit. Same here, he confirmed. It is like my body knows we are about to do something dangerous, and it is getting ready to handle whatever comes. Next, Rodriguez was checking the manual override instructions that Dr. Zexthal had downloaded to their suit computers. According to these schematics, we need to reach 3 different control stations and activate them in sequence, he reported. Total time requirement is approximately 8 minutes if everything goes smoothly. The reactor chamber was a cathedral of alien technology with massive structures that hummed with barely contained energy. Radiation levels were so high that their suit alarms had switched from beeping to a continuous tone that indicated immediate danger to any normal biological life form. Collins reached the first control station and began the manual shutdown procedure. His hands moved with the steady precision of someone whose body was operating at peak efficiency despite the lethal environment. The adrenaline that the alien scientists had dismissed as impossible was now keeping him alive and focused, while radiation levels that should have killed him within minutes merely served to increase his determination. First override complete, he announced. Brooks takes Station 2 while Danny heads for Station 3. The 3 humans worked with the kind of seamless coordination that came from years of trusting each other with their lives. Each man was operating far beyond normal human capacity, but the extreme stress of the situation had triggered biological responses that made the impossible seem routine. Back in the monitoring station, Medical Officer Thompson watched her crew's vital signs with amazement and growing concern. Their heart rates were elevated but stable. Their brain activity was actually increasing rather than declining under stress, and their cellular repair mechanisms were working overtime to counteract radiation damage in real time. "This is incredible," she announced to the alien scientists who were staring at the biological readouts in complete shock. Their bodies are actually adapting to the radiation exposure faster than it can cause permanent damage. Dr. Zexthel could only stare as the impossible humans accomplished something that violated every known law of biology while making it look easy. The emergency alarms finally stopped screaming through the research station corridors as Engineer Collins confirmed that all 3 manual override controls had been successfully activated. The reactor core was now in stable shutdown mode and the radiation levels were dropping to safe ranges, though it would be several more hours before the affected areas could be accessed without protective equipment. Dr. Zexthel stared at the monitoring displays that showed all 3 humans walking calmly out of the reactor chamber after completing a task that should have been impossible for any biological life form. Their vital signs were elevated but stable, and more importantly, they showed no signs of the cellular damage that should have occurred after 27 minutes of exposure to lethal radiation levels. "Bring them directly to the medical bay for immediate examination," Research Director Quintal ordered as she began preparing the most advanced medical scanners available on the station. "I want complete biological workups on all 3 individuals with special attention to radiation damage assessment and cellular repair analysis." Ambassador Carter felt a mixture of relief and pride as she watched her crew emerge from what should have been a suicide mission. The diplomatic implications of this incident were enormous, since the humans had just demonstrated capabilities that clearly exceeded anything the alien scientists had previously encountered. "Are you certain they will be safe?" she asked Medical Officer Thompson, who was reviewing the preliminary scan results on her portable equipment. The radiation exposure was far beyond anything our safety protocols would normally allow. "Their cellular repair mechanisms are working at approximately 10 times normal capacity," Thompson replied with barely controlled excitement. "Not only are they going to be fine, but their bodies are actually using the radiation exposure as a trigger to enhance their immune system responses." The 3 returning heroes showed no signs of fatigue or distress as they entered the medical bay. Collins was already reviewing technical schematics for the station's backup power systems, while Brooks and Rodriguez were discussing optimal evacuation procedures in case of future emergencies. Their behavior suggested that saving an entire space station from nuclear disaster was just another day at the office. "How do you feel?" Dr. Zexthel asked as he began directing the medical scanning equipment toward the humans. His scientific training was warring with his basic understanding of biology as he tried to process what he had just witnessed. "Tired but good," Collins replied. "My hands are a little shaky now that the adrenaline is wearing off, but otherwise I feel pretty normal." "Pretty normal," Velma repeated in a tone that suggested the young researcher was having difficulty processing the concept. "You just spent nearly half an hour in an environment that would have killed our entire species in 3 minutes and you feel pretty normal." Rodriguez shrugged with the casual attitude of someone who had faced death so often that it no longer seemed particularly noteworthy. "The radiation suits provided some protection and our bodies are pretty good at handling stress situations," he explained. "We have been in worse places than that reactor chamber." The alien scientists exchanged glances that clearly indicated they were dealing with something far beyond their previous experience. Quintal began the detailed medical scans while Zexthel reviewed the recorded biological data from the emergency response. Every measurement challenged their understanding of what biological life could accomplish. "Your cellular repair rate increased by over 1,000% during the radiation exposure," Quintal announced as she studied the scan results. "Your immune systems began producing antibodies for radiation poisoning that we have never seen in any known species. Your neurological activity actually improved under extreme stress, Velmer added as he reviewed the brain scans. Most species show decreased cognitive function when faced with life-threatening situations, but your mental performance enhanced. Dramatically, Brooks nodded as though this was completely expected. Adrenaline does that, he explained. When humans are in danger, our bodies produce chemicals that make us stronger, faster, and smarter for short periods of time. But why would evolution produce such a response? Dr. Zexthal asked. Stress should trigger careful thinking and risk avoidance, not enhanced physical performance and increased aggression, medical officer. Thompson decided this was an appropriate time to provide some educational context about human evolutionary history. Our species developed under conditions of almost constant environmental threat, she began. For millions of years, humans faced regular extinction-level events, including ice ages, volcanic eruptions, massive storms, and asteroid impacts. The alien scientists listened with growing amazement as Thompson described a planet where survival required the ability to adapt quickly to changing conditions. She explained how humans had evolved in an environment where being cautious and logical was less important than being able to react quickly and survive impossible situations. Every few thousand years, something would happen that would kill most of the life on Earth, she continued. The only humans who survived were the ones who could adapt their behavior and biology to handle whatever new challenge appeared. Science Officer Davis joined the explanation by describing how human civilization had developed through a series of catastrophic events that forced rapid technological and social advancement. We learned to turn disasters into opportunities, he said. Every time something tried to kill us, we figured out how to become stronger. That explains the redundant organ systems. Quintal realized as she reviewed the scan data with new understanding. Your species developed backup systems for every critical biological function because you never knew which ones might be damaged or destroyed. Collins laughed at the obvious amazement in the alien researcher's voice. We call it being prepared for anything, he said. When you grow up on a planet that is constantly trying to kill you, then you develop habits that help you survive whatever comes next. Dr. Zexthal was beginning to understand that humanity represented something completely new in his experience of biological development. Most species evolved in stable environments where efficiency and specialization were rewarded. Humans had evolved in chaos where adaptability and resilience were the only traits that mattered. Your entire civilization is based on surviving the impossible, he said as the full implications began to sink in. You do not see radiation exposure as a death sentence. Because you have survived worse things, we see it as a problem that needs to be solved, Rodriguez corrected. When humans encounter something dangerous, we do not run away from it, we figure out how to beat it, Ambassador. Carter watched the alien scientists process this information and realized that humanity had just redefined what the galaxy considered possible. The Galactic Science Consortium had spent decades studying reports about humans and concluding they could not exist. Now they were learning that humans not only existed but represented a completely new category of biological life. We would like to invite your entire crew to undergo complete biological analysis, Dr. Zexthal announced. This discovery will require a fundamental revision of our understanding of evolution consciousness and the limits of biological adaptation. We would also like to send a research team to Earth to study your environmental conditions, Quintal added. Understanding how your species developed these capabilities could provide insights that benefit the entire galactic community. Lisa smiled as she realized that what had started as a first contact mission to prove humanity's existence had become something much more significant. The aliens were no longer questioning whether humans were real, they were trying to understand how reality had produced something as remarkable as humanity. 3 weeks after the reactor incident, Research Station Alpha 7 had been transformed into the most active scientific facility in the Galactic Science Consortium. Ships arrived daily carrying researchers from dozens of different species, all eager to study the humans who had revolutionized their understanding of biological possibility. Dr. Zexthal stood in his expanded laboratory reviewing the final report that would be transmitted to the Consortium High Council within the next few hours. The document represented the most significant discovery in galactic biological science, and would likely result in a complete restructuring of how the galaxy approached the study of life and consciousness. The humans have agreed to extend their stay for another month, Research Director Quintal announced as she entered the laboratory carrying data pads containing the latest test results. Ambassador Carter says her government is extremely interested in establishing permanent scientific exchange programs with the consortium. Velmor looked up from his workstation where he had been analyzing blood samples that continued to produce impossible results. "Sir, I am still finding new cellular structures every day," he reported. "Yesterday I discovered that human blood contains dormant repair mechanisms that only activate under extreme stress conditions." The young researcher had become something of an expert on human biology over the past 3 weeks, and his enthusiasm for the subject had earned him recognition throughout the scientific community. His detailed analysis of human adaptation mechanisms was being studied by researchers across the galaxy. "What have we learned about their planet?" Dr. Zexthal asked as he reviewed the environmental data that had been transmitted from Earth. The information painted a picture of a world that seemed designed to create the ultimate survivor species. "Earth is a catastrophe planet," Quintal replied using the term that had become standard among the research teams. "In the past million years, it has experienced over 30 extinction-level events, including asteroid impacts, volcanic supereruptions, ice ages that covered most of the surface, and atmospheric changes that should have made complex life impossible." She activated a holographic display showing Earth's geological history with special emphasis on the disasters that had shaped human evolution. The timeline was a continuous series of catastrophic events that would have driven most species to extinction but had apparently made humans stronger with each challenge. "The most remarkable discovery is that humans do not just survive these events," she continued. "They use each catastrophe as an opportunity to develop new technologies, new social structures, and new biological adaptations." Dr. Zexthal studied the data and shook his massive head in amazement. "Look at this pattern," he said, pointing to a section of the timeline. "Every time their planet tries to kill them, they respond by becoming more advanced. The Ice Age forced them to develop better tools and cooperative hunting strategies," Velmor added as he highlighted specific periods. "Volcanic winter taught them agriculture and food storage. Floods and earthquakes led to better engineering and construction techniques. Most species would have developed the technology to leave such a hostile environment," Quintal observed. "Instead, humans chose to master their planet and turn its hostility into their greatest advantage." The laboratory door opened and Ambassador Carter entered, accompanied by Science Officer Davis and Communications Officer Kate Murphy. The human delegation had become regular visitors to the research facility as they participated in the ongoing studies that were revealing new aspects of human capability almost daily. "Dr. Zexthal, we have received authorization from Earth to share some additional information that might help your research," Carter announced as she produced a data storage device. "This contains historical records, geological surveys, and medical databases that should provide more context for human development." Murphy stepped forward with the confident manner of someone who had spent weeks answering impossible questions about her species. "We thought you might be particularly interested in our psychological and social adaptation mechanisms," she said. "Humans do not just survive physical challenges. We also adapt to social and intellectual problems in ways that might surprise you." Davis activated a portable holographic projector that displayed information about human civilization development. "Every major advancement in human technology has been driven by our response to seemingly impossible challenges," he explained. "We developed space travel because we wanted to explore dangerous places. We created advanced medicine because we refused to accept that diseases could not be cured," Murphy added. "We built global communication networks because we needed to coordinate responses to planetary threats. We developed artificial intelligence because we wanted partners who could help us solve problems that were too complex for individual humans." Carter concluded. Everything we have achieved comes from our refusal to accept that anything is impossible. Dr. Zexthel listened to this explanation and realized that human technological development followed the same pattern as their biological evolution. Where other species saw obstacles, humans saw opportunities to become more capable. This explains why your first contact protocols include sharing advanced technology, he said. You assume that other species will use new capabilities to solve problems and overcome challenges. We assume that all intelligent life wants to grow and improve, Davis replied. When we meet other species, we offer to share what we have learned because we believe cooperation makes everyone stronger. Quintal consulted her research notes and asked the question that had been puzzling the scientific community since the first comprehensive scans. Why do humans continue to seek out dangerous and challenging situations even after achieving technological superiority? Because challenge is what makes us human, Murphy answered without hesitation. A human who stops growing and learning and facing new obstacles is not really living according to our cultural values. We explored dangerous space regions because they might teach us something new, Carter added. We study alien technology because it might help us solve problems we have not encountered yet. We volunteer for missions like this one because meeting other species helps us understand more about what it means to be alive and conscious and part of something larger than ourselves, Davis concluded. Velmar had been recording this conversation and his tentacles curled with excitement as he processed the implications. Sir, they are describing a species that has turned survival itself into a philosophy of continuous improvement, he announced. More than that, Dr. Zexthel realized as the full picture became clear. They have demonstrated that consciousness and biology can evolve together in ways that we never considered possible. The final pieces of understanding fell into place as the alien scientists recognized that humanity represented something completely new in galactic civilization. They were not just another species with unusual biological capabilities, they were living proof that evolution could produce forms of life that transcended traditional categories. The implications for our understanding of consciousness development are staggering, Quintal announced as she began preparing the final research summary. If humans can achieve this level of biological and technological integration, then we need to reconsider our assumptions about the limits of what intelligent life can accomplish. Ambassador Carter smiled as she watched the alien scientists grapple with the reality of human existence. Dr. Zexthel, would you be interested in visiting Earth to continue this research? She asked. I think you would find our planet quite educational. The massive alien scientists considered the offer and realized that studying humanity in their natural environment would provide insights that could revolutionize galactic science. I believe that would be the opportunity of a lifetime, he replied. As the research station prepared to send its report to the Galactic Science Consortium, Dr. Zexthel reflected on how much had changed since that first skeptical dismissal of human existence. The galaxy was about to learn that impossible things were possible when evolution got creative enough to produce a species like humanity.